The success of a restaurant is location.
You have to ask yourself, if you want to open a restaurant, why am I opening this restaurant? What for?
You need to have a story.
Yeah, and you need to deliver on that promise.
Good food brings more people. Good food makes repetitive people. The one-third has changed. Welcome to a new episode of Food Unscripted. Bedouin Foodie, Hani and myself will take you on journeys about food, restaurants, and unanswered questions. It's unscripted. No preparation whatsoever. We sit, we talk, we discuss our experiences, 12 years, 8 years, and all in the making of unanswered, unscripted questions. Today it's gonna be about restaurants. What make the success of restaurant? A very sensitive project. And they say that many of restaurants fail.
Absolutely. It's a really, really interesting topic. And like you just said, you keep hearing, most restaurants that open fail or close down within 1 to 2 years. So what is it that makes something work and something doesn't work? I think we can have a nice conversation about that.
It starts by, I believe, when they say the success of a restaurant is location. So we should start by that?
So we can start by that. But before that, I wanna just say something. You have to ask yourself, if you want to open a restaurant, why am I opening this restaurant? What for? Right? There are people who are going to open it for the passion of doing it. A chef wants to have a restaurant, or somebody wants to do it as a business to make money, and so on and so forth. A lot of the ones that fail are opened by chefs without a partner to do the business part. It's such a tricky business that the business of operating a restaurant has to be done by a professional who has experience and knows what they're doing. Chefs know food. They're not businessmen. They don't know about the other part. So that's a major reason why a lot of restaurants fail. So the ones that really work and are very successful, you'll find that it's a team. It's a chef driven, but there's also the manager who is also a lot of times a partner in the business.
It's the food and someone handling the P&L.
The P&L, food costs, HR, you're dealing with chefs are notorious for having egos and being very difficult people to deal with. So imagine a kitchen has it has one main chef, but they're all the same. So you have to deal with egos, you have to deal with, which are HR issues, people coming, going, not showing up, purchases, food costs we mentioned, theft, IT, and now there's a new thing, which is, someone has to deal with social media, Instagram, marketing, dealing with people like you and me, bloggers and influencers. This is a full-time job.
And Hani, you didn't even reach the point where you started talking about good food and taste of food. And all of this is 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
And food, we didn't even start talking about that.
We didn't even start talking about the food. So let's start with what you mentioned, location. It's the most talked about one.
So location is an investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's expensive, but yet you'll get the return. So some people would say, would you open a Dubai mall? Wow, I cannot afford it. It's probably $1 million or 2 or 3 or 4. But if you have the million, let's put the number as $1 million.
Yeah.
If you have the number, you'll do 3 million.
Yeah.
Because Dubai Mall is the most as an example, is the most visited location in the world. If you are on Sheikh Zayed, or if you are near the Eiffel Tower, and so on. So another location, when you say, I have an amazing location for a very, very good price, can you make people reach there? Yeah. Yes, if you create not only a restaurant, but a destination. So a destination is a restaurant that people will travel for, will drive for. Is it the chef? Is it the decor? Is it the story? Is it whatever? So you need to create a destination. So this is a location where people will drive for you. It's more expensive, etc., etc. Because you'll have less people.
Yeah.
Or location in the most visited location,
which has a lot of traffic.
Exactly. So lots of traffic.
Yeah.
So if you pay X, you'll definitely do a 2x. If you pay X divided by 10, you'll have to do X divided by 5 or whatsoever.
Yes. So a good way to start is, you look at your concept. What's my restaurant? For example, I'm a pizza restaurant. Okay, do I need traffic or am I a destination? Which is exactly what you just mentioned. If you need traffic, then you need to be in a mall or a high traffic area like Barsha Heights in Dubai, or I don't know in Lebanon where that would be. But so that determining your location should be based on what your concept, what you're selling. Are people going to go out of their way to come to me? Accessibility, parking, availability of parking, You know, there's a ramen place here I wanted to go to. Every time I go, I can't find parking. So I asked myself, why would anybody open a restaurant in a place where there's no parking? You know, these things can make or break a restaurant.
There's a point I wanted to start with as well, and probably the first time I'm going to discuss it in this matter. There's something I call the curse of the Michelin Guide Association. Let me explain. When a chef who decided to be a chef is someone who usually is in the kitchen, cooking food, handling a certain staff that is 4, 10, probably 20 people to the maximum. And then one day the Michelin guide comes to him and say, you're awarded the star. We'll talk about the restaurant versus chef later on, but that chef will put a star on his chest and become the star. And that star, who has been in the kitchen for the last decade or so, comes out in the open, becomes an entrepreneur overnight, becomes a celebrity overnight, becomes on TV overnight, and becomes someone who decided to be in the kitchen to cook, going out to deal with people and take pictures and so on. This is why I call it a curse, because this person was never trained to be an entrepreneur and yet to open a restaurant, probably one of the failures, was never trained to handle people or to discuss people or talk with people and so on. So chefs come in awarded 50 best Michelin and other things, and they wake up to a fact, okay, today everybody knows me, I'm a celebrity. What do I do? And I believe lots of, a big part of the failure of the chefs, their character, and you started by saying they have their ego, etc., etc.
They're notoriously difficult people.
Exactly, and comes the award to emphasize on it.
Yes, absolutely.
So the chef, so the curse of the Michelin is something we need to discuss later on, probably in an episode of itself. So I'll describe it differently because I had lots of friends and connections that I believe are living that wrong life without even knowing they are. So back to the restaurant.
Let me give you some examples.
Yeah.
Let's look at big, successful restaurant companies. Some of the biggest ones in the world. Off the top of my head, there's a company in the United States called Major Food Group. Major Food Group owns Carbone, but they also own many brands. They're huge. What's their secret? Their secret is there's a chef, Mario Carbone, and there's two guys running the business. Jeff Zalaznik and another person, I forgot his name. Together, they form a formidable team. One person deals with the food and all that, then there's somebody dealing with the business part. Another good example of that is Nobu, the Nobu Group. Empire, hotels, everything. Again, there's the chef, but there's another person in the back. I think his name is Mayor, and he's the one who's running the company.
Yeah.
So that's something that's important to identify and explain.
So this is one. 2, location or location 1, this is 2.
Okay.
And then comes the restaurant.
Yes.
Is it the food? Is it the location? Is it the
design?
service? Is it the design?
Yeah.
Lots of things.
Yes.
And sometimes we reach a point where you look at the restaurant and you say, the design is average, but smaller, fully loaded.
Yeah.
And then you go to another restaurant and you say, the food is average, and then it's fully loaded and packed.
Yeah.
What's the secret? Do we have that answer of what really is the secret of success for a restaurant?
You know, I don't think it's a blueprint. You can't just tick them off. It is a combination of everything, definitely. Design is very important. Today, restaurants are spending 10, 20 million dirhams on fit out. So it's a huge investment, depending obviously on the kind of concept you want. But I believe design is important. I believe obviously the food is important. Service, ambiance, lighting, music. It's a combination of everything. But I recently did a poll on my Instagram where I asked my foodie followers, what's the most important determining factor when you pick a restaurant? If you had to pick one, is it the food? Is it the location? Ease of access, parking, what is it? At the end of the day, the majority said it's the food. So you have to start out with the good food. That's the most important thing. You have to have the good food.
Depending on which city we are in, and which country we are in, and who are your clientele, there is something we sometimes forget about, and that is the story. So let's say you are opening in New York, you need to have a different approach. If you're opening in Dubai, you need to have a different approach. Who are your clients? Yes. If you are opening in Lebanon, you will have a different approach, considering in Lebanon today, before the war, 90% of people will have been Lebanese. But if you're opening in Dubai, none would be from one country.
You're
So you have more than 200 nationalities.
And you have to take
coming
that
in.
into consideration.
Definitely. So is your menu in Arabic? Is your menu in English, etc. So it goes back to the main story. So when two partners would sit on the table and say, okay, you're the food, I'm the P&L, I'm the management. Let's start with the story. Is it your story? Is it the story of the city? Is it the story of Amalfi? Or is it the story of Italy? Or is it the story of the pizza? Or is it the story of the old traditional cuisine? Is it this? What's the story? So you need to build up, in my opinion, one, to have an interesting story that people would connect to. Sometimes it's a real one, sometimes it's a fake one. And that fake one would become so genuine in a way or another that people will believe it.
Yes.
The story will let people say, I want to be part of it. I want to experience the story.
Yes. Would you say the story is a component of the overall concept?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So the story of Italy, so I need to travel through Italy.
Yeah.
I need to understand. You need to tell me that you traveled a million times to Italy. You need to tell me that your friend was a chef from Italy. You can come up with a story. You can come up with a story and say probably your grandma was Italian, and when you were a kid, your mom told you that the grandma used to do a pizza. And you need to have a story.
Yeah.
So the story comes as a very, very important part. And from the story comes the restaurant. And that restaurant would be a good decor and good food, but also something that we forget. I'm talking things that are not straightforward on a sheet of paper.
Yes.
Sheet of paper. The last one,
It's not something you can...
exactly, is the energy.
Yes.
What is the energy? That energy is when you open up the
nafas.
door, nafas. When you open up the door, you need to feel something. When you come into a restaurant, when you come into a hotel, when you come into a room, when you come into your friend's place, or someone that invites you for the first time, you open up the door of the house and you feel something.
Yes.
And that something can be welcoming or not, can be warmth or not, can be good smell or not, can be positive or not.
Yeah.
So that energy around the place is also a combination of everything. Good service, good welcoming, good training, good decor, good lighting, very important lighting.
Absolutely.
I can talk about that. And
I have something to say about the lighting.
Please
as well.
do.
Okay, so question for you. If you were to do a restaurant, would you do mood lighting or would you do Instagram friendly lighting?
Instagram all the way.
Right?
And exactly, this is what I want to reach.
Yeah.
So the architect himself usually
Yes.
is not an influencer, is not a social media person. And the restaurateur is someone who wants good decor.
Yeah, but he has a concept, the restaurateur. Maybe he wants a romantic feel to it. I'm in the school of thought with you. I believe it's critical to have Instagram friendly lighting. And if there's a solution to that now where you can do both. You know these little lamps they put on the table now? They're rechargeable. You can grab it, you can take your picture, and you can put it back.
Yeah.
So there is a solution to get the best of both worlds. But lighting is critical.
Lighting, reflections, shadows, and all of this is very important. Architects are great people.
Yes.
They finished at university usually 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the old ones. There were no art of taking pictures.
Yeah.
So that architect will give you the best looking place.
Yes.
And when you open up your phone,
They'll forget
the shadows.
Yeah.
They forget the wavelength. They will forget the color of light. So yellow and white and green and blue when food would look different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shadows coming from sides.
Yeah.
Black spots and dark spots.
Yeah.
Overlit others. Which the eye would look well at, would enjoy, but the camera would understand.
Yes.
So this is something very important.
You know, whether you like it or not, we have to admit that the world has changed with the digital phones and the cameras and with Instagram, and it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But there is a solution to have the best of both worlds, which are these lights.
I love the lights.
You know, I love them too. I love them too. My niece is actually a restaurant designer. And I speak to her about it all the time. And she is in total agreement that you need these lights.
Excellent. So we talked about the energy, and now it's time to talk about the service before reaching the food.
Yes.
Service, please.
I have something that's a combination of the energy and the service and the welcoming. You know, sometimes you come into an Italian restaurant, you sit down, the guy welcomes you, and immediately they'll bring you this pizza bread and the olive oil and this, you know. That's a welcome to my home gesture. In Iranian restaurants, you get the plate with the greens and the white cheese. In Arabic restaurants, also, you go, you sit down, they'll bring you something, a dip, something like that. I think that's a nice touch, a welcoming touch. Everybody loves to get something for free. You know what I mean? It's a sign of generosity.
Yes.
So that's where the service starts. It starts with the welcome at the door, the person checking your name and your reservation. The dining experience starts there. And if you disregard that aspect of it, you're setting yourself up to fail.
100%. So service is very important with a limit. So service, welcoming, taking care, etc., comes with a certain finesse and this thin line between being overdone and beautifully done or rightly done. And that line, you overpass it when you start overselling,
Yes.
when you start pushing, when you start talking a lot, when you start explaining a lot, and when you start cutting the discussion just to take the order or to do whatever. And most importantly, which I hate, I cannot tolerate, is touching my plates and serving from my plates without taking my permission. So sometimes, probably because I take pictures of them, so the plate reaches, and then by system, even before we look at it, they start serving it and distributing to all the table. And this is something
we talked about it before, the sharing concept.
Sharing concept. So it's very important.
Yeah.
What we sometimes forget about is the last impression. What would you talk about a restaurant in the car? The last impression.
Yes.
What would you talk about in the elevator while leaving the restaurant is the last impression.
Yes.
You would definitely enjoy the first impression, but when you leave and when you are asked to leave a review, what's left is the last impression.
Yes.
Because the lunch or dinner would have been taken 2 hours of your time. You have probably had a glass or two of wine. So the last impression. So service needs to start well, end well.
Yes.
So the client or the customer would go out and say, okay, wait, I had to focus on something else than food. What I mean by that is if the restaurant only focuses on food, all the concentration would be on food. So you would need a 5/5 on food. But if food takes 30% of the experience and service takes 30% of the experience and good music takes 30% of experience, you would leave saying, okay, wait, it's an overall complete thing. So I'll give it a 5, even though the food was not perfect, even though the service was not perfect, but because every attention to detail was taken care of,
Yes.
you would give it a 5.
I would add to that, if there's a mistake in the service, if somebody makes a mistake, own it, apologize, and fix it. People are forgiving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How many times, not many times, but I can remember a few times where I've had, everything was great, but there was a mistake in the service, and I'll say, oh, you know, it ruined the whole thing. But had there been an apology or it was rectified, then just own it. Everybody makes mistakes and everybody forgives.
The main thing is never the mistake, but how you handle it.
Yes.
So mistakes do happen.
Yeah.
I do not care if I see a hair. It happens with mom. I do not care if I see a broken plate. It happens at home.
Yeah.
I do not care about any problem that might happen. Probably a fallen tray, but it's not the problem, or an overcooked meat.
Yeah.
And then how you treat it. It's how you treated the issue.
Exactly.
So the issue coming, if you say, I saw a hair, please can you remove my plate? You have 2 ways of doing it. Or we're sorry, we're gonna do it again, and just say, shut up.
Yeah.
Or you say, no, it never happens with us, it's your hair.
Yeah.
And I've had this.
Oh.
Yes, I've had this.
Yeah.
Or the other one of, please can you slow down, the service is getting too much. No, I believe you're not in a good mood. Or you're taking pictures, remove your phone from your hand, or so on and so forth. Or the delivery things or the Google Maps thing. So it's very important to look at handling the problem and not the problem itself, and this is the main important thing.
Yeah.
And now the food. And now the food. Good food brings more people. Good food makes repetitive people. Good food does a good advertising. Good food lets people talk about it. So food is a major important part.
At the end of the day, you're opening a restaurant, people are coming because of the food.
Yeah. So food is the main thing.
Yeah.
So talking about food, okay, let's segregate it. Fine dining food, fresh food, from farm to table food, sandwiches, street food, etc., etc. So let's go back to the main thing.
Yeah.
Good story,
Yes.
good decor, and food that comes with it and plays the game with it.
Yes.
And you need to advertise it in the right way. So when you say from farm to table, you need to own it.
Yes.
When you say it's street food and made at home,
Yes.
you need to own it. So food needs to be built around a good story, good ingredients, and then good food.
And you need to deliver on that promise or that you said advertise it or on what you communicate. Don't say I'm serving authentic XYZ and not serve authentic XYZ.
What do you expect from food? Is it new food? Is it good food? So when you have food on a table or a new restaurant or someone calls you and say, come rate us. Or if I invite you to a restaurant, what do you expect?
Okay, for me personally, I expect authenticity, respect to recipes, and the flavors to be correct. You can come and tell me, what about people who are modernizing and introducing new things? You know what? If it's good, it's good. You know, there's a saying, what's your favorite kind of food? Well, good food. Or what are you allergic to? I'm allergic to bad food. You know the saying, if it's good, it's good. So I expect something that tastes good, and I expect also something very important. I don't want to be ripped off. The pricing is very important. It has to be well priced. When I go to a fine dining restaurant or a sushi restaurant in Tokyo or something, I'm going with the expectation and knowledge of how much I'm going to pay. So I'm ready to pay the big money.
How much are you ready to pay and why?
Well, I'm ready to pay the big money. Me specifically, I'm ready. No one's forcing me to go to a specific restaurant. That's why I always say, I look at the Google reviews. They give them 1 star, it was too expensive. Don't go to an expensive restaurant and then complain about the prices. You can look up the menu online and you can see what it is.
It needs to be worth for your money.
It needs to be worth for your money. And what's worth for me, it may not be the same for you. It might be the same for them. I'm willing to go out of my way. I traveled all the way to Japan, took another flight, took a 1-hour train to have crab and uni in a specific place in the middle of Japan in Hokkaido. That's me. If you calculate how much all of that cost me, you know, it'll never make sense. But I got what I wanted.
So the restaurant owners,
Yeah.
okay, the chef did good food,
Yes.
and then comes the business developer,
Yes.
or the business owner,
Yes.
and says, okay, how much should we price it?
Yeah.
How much is it worth?
Yes.
And what are the ingredients?
Yes.
And this is the collaboration that happens between a chef and the restaurant owner.
Yes.
Should we look only at food cost? Should we look at, this is the unanswered question.
Yes.
If a plate is for 300 dirhams, or another plate is for 100, is it worth the money?
That's the very good question. Let's take the famous Salt Bay.
Yeah.
All right? He has a burger, and then he has the same burger with gold leaf on it. The difference in price is exorbitant. But you know what? People are waiting in line in Dubai in this restaurant to come in and pay that money for that burger. A lot of it is for the gram, for the Instagram, whatever. If you figure out a way to get people to pay you that much money for your food, your dish, kudos to you. You figured it out. The person who's going there is not feeling ripped off. They are coming there knowing they're going to pay this. So it's a double-edged sword. A person like me will go there. If I feel like I got ripped off or it wasn't right, I'll go out of my way to communicate that with people. I don't like that. I don't like people getting ripped off. I don't know what the proper word is. You know what I mean?
So back to the restaurant, when you open
Yeah.
up a restaurant, it's very important to think out of the box in many
Yeah.
ways. Is it comfort food? And people would have it every day. Is it fine dining? People would not have it every day.
Absolutely not. And the amount of people that go to fine dining is a smaller group. So you're competing with other restaurants for the same clientele.
So I always say to restaurant owners, if I want to consult for them, is it's a 7 to 8 hours before we start brainstorming. What do we want to sell? Do we want to sell manaish? Do we want to sell croissant? Do we want to sell something that people would eat every day?
Yes.
Do we want to sell thousands of items for $1 or hundreds of items for 10?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very important question as a restaurateur. So then you take a step back and understand what you want to do and start again with, is it comfort food? People would have it every day, but is this what we want to do? Would we be on list of best and be famous? Do we want to go into the fine dining and probably open only at night, so our prices need to double and probably triple because we're paying for the rent? When a restaurant opens from 5 onward, think if you're a customer and a restaurant owner, the restaurant owner would need to pay the rent. He doesn't have breakfast, he doesn't have lunch, so it's 3 in 1. So the prices would definitely be higher, and the average check would definitely be higher. And the same as a customer, know sometimes when I paid for 80 dirham for a small piece of whatever, say, okay, wait, it's only a pizza, come on. 110 for a pizza, which I know would cost 10. I need to understand. Or I'm paying for the rent and helping with the rent, or I'm paying for the employees, or I'm paying for the license tag, or I'm paying for the franchise name. I would have accepted if the pizza was good.
Yes.
Back to the original thing.
Yes.
But pizza was bad, and all of this was bad as well. Okay, fine.
Okay, I know you're talking about an experience you recently had in Dubai. But I know exactly what you mean. You know what? If it's a master pizzaiola who's coming from Napoli to here, you know what? Or they're importing the tomatoes and the mozzarella and all of that, then we know. But I want that. I want it to be delivered. I want what I'm coming here for.
So what do you want as a restaurateur, and what makes a restaurant successful? So back to the original question that we asked when we started, what makes a restaurant successful is lots of things.
Yes.
That you need to take your time thinking of.
Yes.
That you need a consultant to help you think of. What does a consultant do? A consultant helps you find the right answers for you.
Yes.
So the consultant helps you ask the right questions to find the right answers, so you start on the right foot.
Yeah.
And not reach a point where you say, I thought of it differently.
Yeah. You know how many times I see a restaurant opening and I'm like, I wish they just call me, ask me first, my opinion. When I say I, people who do what I do or what you do, we are in touch with the market. We are also in touch with the customers, the people who dine out. I get every day, I'm the one who's dealing with that. If you're sitting in an office in London or in Paris, you're not gonna know more than someone who lives here and who's in touch with the market. Do your research, make a business plan. Is this the right concept? Is this the right location? These are all critical. How many times people come and they open a restaurant without a business plan? There's another thing, human resources, access to good staff. It's a very difficult thing. You know, there are big restaurant companies here in Dubai that own multiple restaurants, like 5, 10, and they're all really good. Well, you know what? They have all the good employees working for them. They give them great health benefits. They give them great salaries. Some of them let them have 2-3 months off in the summer. You're competing with that also.
When I first started in 2012, I remember the formula was very simple. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 food cost, 1/3 expenses, and 1/3 profit. Very simple. And then came COVID. Now you have 1/3 for the delivery company.
Absolutely.
You have 1/3 that goes for the exorbitant high rent and expenses. And you have the food cost,
Yep.
1/3. What's left?
Yeah.
So everything is more expensive. The 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 has changed. Food cost is pushed down to 22 to 27.
Yeah.
It's not 35 anymore. Delivery companies take between 25 and 32. Rental is way too expensive.
And we don't have the friendliest landlords in the world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what's left? Sometimes 10% of profit or 15%.
Yeah.
20% if you're king of the world. And would that be sustainable? How many years do you need to return on investment? So we hear sometimes a restaurant costing 4 million. How many years to cover that?
To cover that.
If you are in the main best high-end location of the world, definitely. But can you do it on a hidden location? And then comes something else we don't talk about. You are obliged in big malls to change your decor every couple of years. And then they ask you to remove everything, clean up everything, close for 2 or 3 months, and start again. And they would not reduce not 1% of
Not
your
1%.
rent. Are you up to it? Can you do it? So these are questions.
Yeah.
Are they asked enough?
And then the malls that you mentioned, if your restaurant is not working out, they're not going to come and help you out and give you an extra 6 months or everything. You're out. There's a waiting list of hundreds of brands waiting for that location.
Yeah, and, exactly.
Yeah.
Indeed, all the way.
Yeah.
When you open a restaurant, something you need to think of. You know, let me put it on what concerns us. Big investment, let's say $1 million for decor, $1 million for hiring and creating the company, and then comes marketing. Oh, we're out of budget.
Yeah.
We need to outsource that.
Absolutely.
Man,
we
come on.
forgot to include it in the business plan.
We're not exactly.
Yeah,
So
if
when
they
you
did the business plan.
So when you open up a restaurant, keep 10 to 20% of your initial investment instead of putting it into buying a chair and buying a table for marketing. Yes. Because the minute you open, the minute you say, okay, doors are open, it's one of two. Or you're the luckiest person on earth, or الرزق والبركة والنفس and everything in between, or you are a famous group and people will just come in.
Yes.
Or you would need to invest in investing in press releases, inviting in photos,
free meals,
lots of things. And whenever the opening starts, and I hear it every single day, we come up to a restaurant and say, okay, we're ready. Oh, sorry, we need this for free because we're out of budget. You just opened yesterday. What happened? So this is very, very important and crucial. All the investment, would be thrown away if you don't have enough marketing budget to let people know you exist.
Absolutely.
Very simply.
The business is so competitive now, so competitive, that you need that factor, the marketing. Whatever it's used, TikTok, Instagram, okay, here it's all about Instagram. And you need to work with influencers, bloggers, whatever you want to call them. You can do paid advertising, you can do whatever you want to do. So you have to also manage this relationship with the digital. And it comes with a cost. Big restaurant groups have in-house PR and in-house digital media manager who handles all the different accounts. Big restaurant groups have the ability to hire some of the best PR companies in the world. Here we have some incredible PR companies. Let's say you're not in a, let's say I own only this one restaurant. Well, I'm competing with a conglomerate that owns 20 restaurants and has million dirham budget to spend on advertising and giving away free food. I call, when you invite the blogger to come and give them free meals, this comes at a cost. It's not for free. Someone's paying for this food.
Sometimes I receive calls, and it happened probably 10 times with me. Someone calls and says, I have the money. What do you think I should do in the food business? And my reply is, restaurant business is not an investment. And he says, I didn't understand. So my answer goes back to, tell me, what do you like? So it needs to start with something you like.
Absolutely.
So I asked the question, what do you like? And this guy, 10 of them, same story, answered anything. And my answer goes again, restaurant is not a food business.
Save your money, my friend.
Save your money, my friend. What I mean by that is you need to enjoy it to make it happen. You need to love it to have a success. You need to understand what is food. Food or restaurant is not a business, because restaurant is where you can lose all your money in a split of a second. Money can be stolen this way. Money can be spread. You can't imagine. So you need to understand. And a restaurant success starts where? Starts from the kitchen and starts from the bin. You can steal anything from the restaurant from the bin. You can multiply your food cost by 2 just by throwing everything out. You can cut your tomatoes thicker and have a huge difference. You can put more salt, more garlic powder, more anything in your sauces, and then it multiplies.
Let me give an example of how stealing can happen in a restaurant. And I read this. The cooks were taking the steaks, putting them in garbage can, and at the end of the day, putting it out with the garbage in the back. After closing, come and take the steaks and sell them.
100%.
And if you don't have a system for that, you'll never know. You'll never realize. That's why there are systems. We didn't even discuss investment in IT. Everything now is, they have computer, orders come through, QR code. Do I pay this? That's another huge investment.
And even
inventory management.
And even marketing, which you discussed, how to spend your money in marketing. Should you spend them on Instagram, on Facebook, on press, on ads, on advertising on the roads, on billboards, or simply on putting them on aggregators? And all of this needs support and consultancy. You get up a marketing guy, you get a social media guy, but this guy just knows how to put pictures. You need a higher authority who understands how to spend money and how to spend and how to create good marketing campaigns. And whenever the investment starts, that 20% you need to keep instead of putting it into the core is where the challenges come. And probably for better success and for the success of a restaurant, it needs to start before even starting the project. So we went to
the build-up.
Exactly. So we went too big in millions, etc., etc. But let's go back to, before finalizing, into the small little story. If I have 100,000 and I want to open a very little tiny street food,
a shawarma falafel shop.
Start by something you love. Start by something you like.
That you yourself are making.
Start by passion, by something you're passionate about. And it will build up. You need money to do money, and money makes you more money, but you need to start somewhere. And 100,000 can reach to a million can reach to 10 millions. But you need to start somewhere. And that somewhere is very important. In do more of what makes you happy, do more of what you know how to do, and get help. Get help. There are people out there that can help. Some people start with opening a business that's related to you. So now you're starting your business that's related to you. I started my business that's related to me. And when you reach a point in maturity and say, okay, now I need to grow, you say, okay, and there cannot be 10 of me. So in a restaurant, you need to take the decision from the beginning. Is it related to the person, Abu Fadi, Fadi, or whatever, the person? Or is it Nusret, the person, or is it a chain that does not have a name but that does not have a person but a name? This is very important, and what do you think about that?
Yes, I think it's very important. You have to think, if you're doing this as a business, like I want to open, my goal is to open 10, 20 locations. Is it replicatable? You have to think about that from before you start. You don't want to closely identify with a person if that person isn't you. I'm not going to hire a chef and identify my restaurant with him, and what if he leaves or she? So these are decisions that have to be done way before you spend your first dirham, dollar, lira, whatever it is.
I would finish it with a little tiny thing. Not everyone tasting food understands food. Yes. So you, restaurant owner, when sometimes you taste when you sometimes think that your mom's food is the best and probably isn't, and you want to create a restaurant that's based around you, you need to understand that this is not how it works. Get a consultant that understands food. Get a chef that understands food. Know your limits of you put the money, he does the food. Do not consider yourself someone that understands the business and starting and wanting to feed people the way you think is right when it is wrong. So take a step back, and we live this every day. Sometimes you eat things and you say, they're not good. And that guy looks at you and says, my mom does it this way. Yeah. I believe it is good. And the I is who are you?
Yes.
You're an entrepreneur with lots of money, but what do you understand about food? Yeah. Tell me how many restaurants have you been to? Tell me how many countries have you discovered? So it's very important to re-ask yourself every single question, reconsider what you're doing, reassess yourself to be able to grow, take a step back on your business and say, okay, wait, more help, less failure to be able to succeed.
Don't assume you know everything. You know what I mean? Have the willingness to listen and to say, you know what, maybe I was wrong.
Success of restaurants, a long and complicated subject. Only 38 minutes this time, but probably we're going to talk about it more and more. What do you do before opening a restaurant? What is the help you need? How should you do it? Is it good food enough? And having good food or cooking good food, is it enough to open up a restaurant? Why not your mom? Is your mom a restaurateur or not? No, it needs way more than that. Interesting discussion, and we're going to do probably more episodes about that.
I think so too.
Follow us on Instagram, Bedouin Foodie, No Garlic, No Onions, and we're going to be with you with food unscripted with more interesting subjects every single week. Wow, there's a lot to talk about. See you soon.
Bye.